All right, so let's talk about Max Verstappen, because there's something genuinely different about this guy that goes way beyond just he's fast or he has a good car. In 2024, Max won his fourth world championship in a car that was only the third best on the grid for most of the season. His teammate Sergio Perez, driving the exact same car, scored 152 points. Max, 437 points. That's almost 3 times as many points in the same car. So today, we're breaking down exactly what makes Max Verstappen different from every other driver on the F1 grid. The setup nobody else can drive. Let's start with something that sounds simple, but is actually mind-blowing. Max's car setup. Alex Albon, who was Max's teammate at Red Bull, described driving Max's car setup as like having your mouse sensitivity turned completely to maximum. For most drivers, they'd just crash immediately. Max likes what's called a sharp front end. When he turns the steering wheel, the car reacts instantly and aggressively. Most drivers hate this because it feels twitchy and unpredictable. They want smooth, gradual turn-in. But Max combines this super sharp front end with a loose, oversteery rear. The front dives into corners aggressively, while the back end is constantly trying to slide out. For most drivers, this would be absolutely undrivable. Lewis Hamilton prefers the complete opposite. He wants a strong, stable rear end that's planted through the corner, even if the front is slower to respond. This lets him brake later and carry more speed through the middle. Max does the opposite. He wants maximum front-end grip, then manages that sliding rear end with supernatural precision. He's constantly driving on a knife's edge, but makes it look completely natural. Here's the problem for his teammates. As the season goes on, Red Bull develops the car based on Max's feedback. What works perfectly for Max becomes impossible for everyone else to drive. That's why you see this massive performance gap year after year. The wet weather genius. Let's talk about Brazil 2024. What happened there wasn't luck. Max started 17th on the grid in torrential rain. Most drivers were just trying to survive. By the end, Max had won. It was the first time since 2005 that someone won from 17th or lower. But here's the key. This didn't happen by accident. When Max was 6 years old, his father Jos deliberately trained him on damp karting tracks. Not dry tracks, damp tracks. This developed something extraordinary in Max's brain. He can feel the car starting to slide before his eyes can even register it happening. Think about that. Your brain processes what you see, then tells your hands what to do. Max's hands have already corrected the slide before his brain consciously registers there's a problem. It's basically a sixth sense for grip levels. In wet conditions, Max doesn't just hammer the throttle and hope for the best. Racing analyst Peter Windsor described it as painting with the throttle. Max constantly makes tiny adjustments, like hundreds of micro corrections per corner. In Brazil, Max said the conditions were like driving a boat or a jet ski. The car was literally floating on standing water. While everyone else struggled to find grip, Max was finding traction on the inside of the track where nobody else even thought to look. This is what separates good drivers from great ones. In perfect conditions with a perfect car, lots of drivers can be fast. But in chaos, in unpredictable conditions, that's when Max becomes absolutely unstoppable. Manipulative versus reactive driving. Here's something most people don't understand about F1 driving styles. There are basically 2 types, reactive and manipulative. Reactive drivers respond to what the car is doing. The car slides, they correct it. They're always half a step behind, reacting to problems. Max is a manipulative driver. He's not responding to the car. He's telling the car what to do. He stays ahead of the car at almost all times. Peter Windsor explained that Max creates what he calls the perfect platform in just a fraction of a second. When changing direction, Max creates this tiny moment where the car is perfectly balanced before applying the next input. It happens so fast you can't see it on replays. But this innate feeling for the limit is what allows Max to extract performance that shouldn't be possible. Then there's the psychological side. Early in his F1 career, Max was really aggressive, almost too aggressive, but he was doing this deliberately, establishing a reputation as someone who won't back down. Years later, in crucial championship moments, that reputation does half the work. His opponents are already thinking Max won't back out before they even get to the corner. It's psychological warfare, and it's incredibly effective. The adaptability factor 2024 was really interesting for Max. For the first time in a while, he didn't have the best car for most of the season. Red Bull dominated early, and Max won 7 of the first 10 races. But then McLaren improved dramatically. Ferrari got faster. The Red Bull was suddenly only the third best car. Most champions would struggle. But Max, he adapted. He has this ability to refine his driving style depending on what the car gives him and what each track needs. He uses what's called a square racing line that combines the ideal racing line with geometric precision. This lets him brake later, improve cornering speed, and get back on power earlier. When he had the best car, he maximized it. When the car fell off, he still extracted every possible point. He never made excuses. He just focused on getting the absolute maximum from whatever he had. That's why, even in the third best car, Max still won 9 races in 2024. That's double the wins of Lando Norris, who was driving arguably the fastest car in the second half. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner said it perfectly. He's been in a class of his own this year. He never lost his focus. He kept over-delivering, kept getting the results. The Hamilton comparison everyone wants to know, Max versus Lewis. Who's actually better? The numbers tell part of the story. Lewis has 7 world championships, 105 wins, and he's statistically the most successful F1 driver in history. There's no taking that away from him. But here's what's interesting. At age 24, both drivers had won exactly 1 championship. The difference? Max started winning races at 18. Lewis started at 22. Max has time on his side. What Max did in 2024 is genuinely remarkable. He won the championship in the third best car. He became the first driver in 41 years to win a championship while driving for a third-place constructor. That's not just talent. That's adaptability and mental strength at the highest level. Lewis himself has said that Max's driving style hasn't really changed since their legendary 2021 battle. The aggressive defending, the fearless overtaking, the refusal to give an inch. That's still Max today, just with 4 championships and even more confidence. Honestly, we're watching 2 all-time greats compete in the same era. We should just enjoy it while we can. So what actually makes Max Verstappen different from everyone else in Formula One? It's the car setup that nobody else can handle. It's the wet weather ability developed from childhood training in the rain. It's the manipulative driving style that keeps him ahead of the car. It's the mental strength to establish dominance both on and off the track. And it's the adaptability to extract maximum performance from any car, in any condition, on any given day. Max Verstappen isn't just fast. He's operating on a completely different level. His brain processes grip differently. His hands respond before conscious thought can catch up. And he never accepts anything less than perfection. That's not something you can learn from watching onboards. That's not something you can copy from telemetry data. That's the difference between a champion and a legend. And we're watching it happen right now.